Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. So what I have for you guys today is of course going to be another episode of my championship score predictions, but in today's video, guys, it is going to be slightly different as we also have some FA Cup games to go ahead and predict this weekend. We've still got 3 of our championship clubs who are taking place in the FA Cup this weekend, so we're also going to be going ahead and predicting those games as well. So if you've not seen this series before, guys, let me quickly explain how it all goes down. So every weekend I of course give you guys my championship score predictions for what I think the results will be with each game going on in the championship. FIFA 18 also makes their score predictions, but what I'm of course interested to know is what you guys have to say. So in the description down below I will leave all the fixtures that are taking place this weekend, and then you guys can easily go ahead and make your predictions. So this weekend in the championship, guys, we have a lot of pretty massive fixtures actually. We have quite a lot of games this weekend between teams at the top of the championship, so this weekend could have quite a significance come the end of the season. And in the FA Cup as well, we also have some very interesting encounters to go ahead and predict this weekend. So as always, guys, I'd be very interested to get your opinions in the comments down below, but without further ado, let's jump into some of these. So we'll start this video out by talking over the FA Cup fixtures, as 2 of them do actually take place tonight on Friday night, guys. The first of which being Leicester City, who do go up against Sheffield United, and I'd be interested to hear from some fans of the clubs who are still in the FA Cup as to how seriously do you want to take this now. Of course, we are going into the 5th round now, so there is a real opportunity to do something this year in a cup competition. But with a team like Sheffield United, who still find themselves only 3 points off the playoffs, I mean, their priority has to be on the league this season, but they have been presented with a pretty good opportunity, you know, away to Leicester City. With the way that Sheffield United like to play, they are a very organised team, and with some of the flair that they've got going forward, you know, Billy Sharp at the moment seems to be in tremendous form. He obviously bagged a double against Leeds last week, and in the last round of the FA Cup he of course scored the winning goal in that game as well, and so they definitely have the capability, in my opinion, to take down this Leicester side. But with Leicester, if they are going to put out a full strength side, you'd expect them to be winning this match, but I don't think it's going to be quite that simple for them. In terms of a prediction, I'm just going to edge towards a 2-1 home victory for Leicester City, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be 1-0 Leicester. The next game to go ahead and predict is another FA Cup game, which is also taking place tonight, guys. That sees Chelsea go up against Hull City, and it was actually the FA Cup which, in my opinion, could have rejuvenated Hull's season. It was when they beat Nottingham Forest, where their season has sort of seemed to turn around since then. Of course, they beat Forest in the league last week as well with that convincing 2-0 victory, but can they bring that form into this game here today? I'm not so sure. Chelsea so far this season have been really on and off, but you get the impression that the FA Cup will be Chelsea's best chance of a trophy this season, so you'd expect Conte to take this quite seriously, really. And with Hull overall this season, of course, they're still in the lower region of the championship. You've got to be expecting Chelsea to put a couple of goals past them in this game here today, but maybe if a player like Jared Bowen, he can produce a moment of magic, we may see an upset in this one. But nevertheless, I am going to back Chelsea for a 4-0 home victory in this one, whereas FIFA's saying it'll just be 1-0 Chelsea. Then the last FA Cup game to go ahead and predict, which does feature a championship team, is a very enticing one actually. That sees Sheffield Wednesday go up against Swansea City, and of course this will be Carlos Carvajal returning to Sheffield Wednesday, and it may be an interesting reception he gets there. Of course, to me, he's really surprised me by how well he's actually done with Swansea. They've now won 3 of their last 4 games, and of course he's managed to guide them out of the relegation zone. When Carlos came into Swansea, they looked destined for relegation, but in fairness to him, he has done a really good job. But Sheffield Wednesday, of course, they are coming into this one with maybe a bit more confidence, really. Of course, they got that win in midweek, quite a surprising one against Derby County, with Lucas João grabbing 2 goals for them and them getting that 2-0 victory. And so I could see, you know, Sheffield Wednesday, they don't really have the players to experiment too much for this game, as they've still got a really injury hampered squad. So I get the impression this one may be heading towards a replay, so I'm going to back this one to go ahead and finish as a 1-1 draw, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be 1-0 Swansea. We do then have a couple of other FA Cup games going on this weekend as well. I thought I'd throw my predictions in for these ones. You don't need to predict these ones, but feel free to do so if you want to down below. We've got Brighton going up against Coventry. For that one, I'll go for a 2-1 home victory for Brighton. West Brom against Southampton, I'll go with a 1-1 draw for that one. I fancy that one to be heading towards a replay. Huddersfield against Manchester United, quite an interesting comparison as well, of course. With Man United, it's probably going to be their best chance of winning a trophy this year, so I expect them to take that game quite seriously. So I'll go for a 2-1 Man United victory. Rochdale against Spurs. Once again, we've seen Spurs so far this season struggle slightly with going to lower league opposition away, especially, of course, they drew that last game with Newport. But for this one, I'm going to fancy them for the 3-1 away victory. Then we do see Wigan go up against Manchester City, and for as good as Wigan have been in League One so far this season, Man City are just on another level. Maybe if a player like Nick Powell can produce a moment of magic, but I am going to go for a 4-1 Man City victory for that one. So guys, there were the FA Cup fixtures which are taking place this weekend. So now guys, we will move on into our Championship games. So our first game in the Championship sees Birmingham City go up against Millwall, and of course with Birmingham coming off the back of that Derby Day defeat, they'll be hoping to put that behind them as soon as possible and get back to winning ways in this one. Before that derby, Birmingham were under quite a decent run of form actually, of course. They managed to guide themselves out of that bottom three for the time being, and they'll be hoping to do that, of course, for the rest of the season. But going up against this Millwall side, it's not going to be an easy proposition for them. Millwall are under quite a decent run of form actually. They're unbeaten in their last 5 or 6 matches in the Championship, and overall their standard of playing has been very good lately, and they are quite a tricky side to go ahead and play against. But for this one, I do anticipate it to be quite a low scoring game actually. You know, with Birmingham coming off the back of that loss last time out, I feel like they'll look to nullify this match and look to get a goal on the counter-attack or from a set piece or something like that. So for this game, I'm actually fancying this one to go ahead and end as a stalemate, and I'm going to back it to finish as a 0-0 draw, and FIFA 18 is actually going to agree with me. The next game sees Burton Albion go up against Nottingham Forest, and this is in, I think, is going to be a massive opportunity for Burton to go ahead and pick up a result in this one, of course. Nottingham Forest recently have been under a really torrid run of form. They've gone ahead and lost their last 3 games, and overall the performances just haven't been good at all. What I find interesting about this game, it is Burton Albion, who have scored the least amount of goals in the Championship this year, going up against Nottingham Forest, who have conceded, not the most, but near enough to that amount. I think they've conceded about 50 goals so far this season. So in my opinion, Burton just needs to go into this game and start attacking teams more. You know, we saw it in the Ipswich game, which was a really bland game of football. Neither side were really going forward with too much intent. That needs to change for Burton Albion sooner rather than later, as of course they're sat at the bottom of the Championship now. Draws aren't going to be enough for them from now until the end of the season, and so this is exactly the sort of game which they need to be targeting as a victory if they are going to survive this season. But I do get the impression that Nottingham Forest fortunes will turn sooner rather than later, and with Forest being seemingly incapable of defending, this may be a game where they can go forward with that pressure, knowing that Burton aren't brilliant going forward themselves. So for this game, I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-1 away victory for Nottingham Forest, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be 1-0 Burton. The next game then sees Cardiff go up against Middlesbrough, and once again quite an interesting game to go ahead and predict, and quite a tricky one as well. Middlesbrough still definitely have a chance of reaching the playoffs come the end of the season, and if they do play more like they did last week until the end of the season, they're definitely going to be in it with a chance of reaching it, of course. Adama Traore at the moment has been under a fantastic run of form for Middlesbrough, and he's definitely got the capabilities to cause this Cardiff defence some problems. But Cardiff themselves, they managed to grab a victory in midweek, a 2-0 against Bolton Wanderers, and their home form this season really has been brilliant. But I think I saw a stat the other week where it said that Middlesbrough are yet to lose when they have gone 1-0 up in the Championship. So when Middlesbrough take the lead, they've not yet thrown that away so far. So I get the impression that this one could be heading towards a draw, but I am going to go ahead and back Cardiff to just edge this one by 2-1. I've got a gut feeling they may do this one, so I'll say 2-1 Cardiff. FIFA's going to back a 1-1 draw. The next game sees 2 of the most informed sides in the Championship go head to head with one another. That is of course Fulham, who go up against Aston Villa. Aston Villa at the moment are under a ridiculous run of form. I believe now they've won their last 7 or so matches in the Championship, which really is something to be admired. You know, it wasn't too long ago, since only around December time, when there were quite a few Aston Villa fans actually who were calling for Steve Bruce to be sacked, but that seems to have died down by now, as they are sat second in the Championship, and coming off the back of that Derby Day victory as well, spirits will be very high at Aston Villa. But this is going to be a game which they can't take lightly. You know, with how good Fulham have been recently, they're of course sat 5th in the table at the moment in the playoffs, and deservedly so. Going forward, Fulham are definitely a side who have the capabilities of damaging this Aston Villa side, and I do get the impression that there will be quite a few goals scored in this one. You know, Fulham at the moment, they have been a little bit leaky defensively. You know, we saw areas of that when they were playing against Bolton. And so for this game, I'm going to go for a score 2-2 draw for this game, whereas FIFA's backing a 1-0 Villa away victory. Our next game to talk about then sees my club Preston North End go up against Wolves, and this is a game which, you know, I'm quite looking forward to actually. I believe Wolves have sold out their allocation, so it should be a good atmosphere at Deepdale for this one. And in terms of prediction, I'm sort of at a 50-50 whether I'm confident going into this game or not really, of course. Preston have got two of our probably best players suspended going into this game. Both Ben Pearson and Cunningham won't be available as they have both been suspended, so not great timing coming into this one. But with the way Preston like to play, I think there is a potential for us to maybe cause an upset in this one, of course. With this high pressing football, I believe that Wolves may be forced into a couple mistakes, maybe, which Preston could then go ahead and pounce on. I'd be interested to see from Preston's point of view as to who we actually play up front for this one, as of course our game last time against Wolves went ahead and finished 3-2 to Wolves. It was quite an entertaining game actually, and so I'm hoping for more of the same in this one, but this time for Preston to be on the right end of this one. And Wolves, of course, sat top of the Championship. They're there for a reason, and their quality going forward is uncontested really in the Championship. We saw more of what they were about in that last game they had against QPR, but we also saw a couple of weaknesses which could be exploited with Wolves, especially with us going forward. So I'm hoping we put in a good performance for this one, but even so, I've got a gut feeling that Wolves may still do us in this one. So I am going to go ahead and back a 2-1 away victory for Wolves, although I do think we'll give them a good game. I just think their quality going forward may be too much for us in the end. So I'll say 2-1 Wolves. FIFA's going to say 2-0 Preston. Our next game then sees QPR go up against Bolton Wanderers, and in QPR's last game, I thought they did get a little bit unlucky, to be honest. Of course, they played against Wolves and they did put in a valiant effort in that game, and if they take how they played in that game into this one, they will have definitely caused this Bolton side some problems. Of course, we do have to take into consideration as well, Bolton did of course play midweek against Cardiff, so maybe that we could see QPR take that to their advantage in this game, as they will be slightly more fresh for this game as well. With how QPR like to play, and with some of their midfielders especially, who I've been largely impressed by so far this season, I'm just going to back QPR for the 2-1 home victory in this game here today, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a 1-0 Bolton. Our next game then sees Sunderland go up against Brentford in what could be a massive game in Sunderland's season, of course. They are still sat 23rd in the Championship, but with that comeback at Bristol City last week, we could be seeing a new Sunderland going into this week. The only thing which is, you know, stopping me from really wanting to back Sunderland for this game is we've seen a couple of instances so far this season with Sunderland where they've had a really good performance and then next week they've just not followed up on it. They need to follow up on that Bristol City second half performance with something against Brentford here today. And of course, Brentford, they're not going to be any easy customers for Sunderland. Going forward, they've got bags of quality, and in their last game, they did get slightly frustrated playing against Preston with the way that we like to play in that game, but it'll be very interesting to see how Chris Coleman goes ahead and approaches this game. But with how inconsistent they've been so far this season, I'm just not confident in backing them for a victory in this one. So I am going to go ahead and say that this game will finish as a 2-1 away victory for Brentford, and FIFA's going to say it'll end 2-0 Brentford. And then on Sunday we do see the East Anglian derby take place between Norwich City and Ipswich Town, and so I'm sure a lot of Norwich and Ipswich fans will be battling it out in the comments down below as to what you guys think will happen in this one. And in recent history of this derby, Norwich have by far had the better of it. I think we're looking back to like 2008, 2009 since Ipswich got their last victory in this derby here today, but who knows, this could be the one where the tides do change. Both of them currently are sat on the same amount of points, both on 44, with Ipswich just above Norwich on goal difference. So far this season, there's not really been all too much between the two sides. Ipswich, of course, coming off the back of that dreary 0-0 draw they had with Burton Albion last time out. Probably one of the worst games in the Championship we've seen so far this season. We have seen Norwich, on the whole, quite struggle actually for goals at home, and Ipswich similarly, their away form hasn't been brilliant so far this season, and so I'm not gonna lie, I would be very surprised to see a few goals scored in this one. I do get the impression that it's going to be quite a low scoring game where either side will nick this one by 1 goal, something like that, whether it'll be Ipswich on a counter-attack or from a set piece from Waghorn, or whether James Maddison will come up with a moment of magic for Norwich like he did in the last derby day. But honestly, honestly, I do get the impression this one is heading towards a 0-0 draw. With the way Mick McCarthy likes to set up his teams being quite organised and in 2 blocks of 4, I do think that that is the sort of thing which has stifled Norwich so far this season. So for that reason, I'm going to back this game to go ahead and finish as a 0-0 draw. And FIFA is also going to agree with me. Then the last game to go ahead and predict is the late kickoff on Sunday, which is between Leeds United and Bristol City. And this could be a big game in both of their seasons, of course. Leeds at the moment are under a really torrid run of form, and of course they've recently required Paul Heckingbottom as their new manager to go ahead and try and turn their fortunes around this season. But Bristol City themselves don't find themselves playing brilliantly at the moment. Of course, their last game they went ahead and bottled as they were 3-0 up at half time and ended up drawing 3-3 with Sunderland. And so we could see, you know, Bristol City being a bit mentally fragile in this one, and so I wouldn't be too surprised to see them go ahead and shrink back into their shells in this game. Defensively, I do see Bristol City have quite a few gaps at the moment which they weren't having earlier on in the season, which Leeds can definitely exploit with some of the players they've got going forward. And overall, I actually think that Leeds may go ahead and get back to winning ways in this one. So I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-1 home victory for Leeds, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be 1-0 Bristol City. So guys, there you have it. That will wrap it up for this episode of my Championship and FA Cup 5th round score predictions. So do you guys agree with my predictions this week? Let me know down below. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for this video. So if you have enjoyed, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you do subscribe for some regular Championship content. But apart from that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.